Assalamualaikum and greetings to Dr. Hanifah binti Hassan and my fellow classmates. I am Sarah Alia binti Shukri. I'm going to present my conceptual paper entitled The Influence of Teachers' Perception on the Implementation of CFR. Alright, why do I choose this topic? It is because the issue is teachers' perspectives and views on CFR has affected their teaching practice in classrooms. These are the areas or the highlights that I'm going to discuss later, which are different views on CFR among school teachers, and then the influence of teachers' perception towards CFR on their teaching practice in classrooms, as well as the challenges faced by teachers in adopting and adapting CFR in school. And we are going to discuss on efforts to reconstruct teachers' perception on CFR. Firstly, let's discuss on the different views of CFR among school teachers. Based on my reading for the past literature reviews and on conceptual papers, research, case studies, I found that there are two categories of perception that exist among teachers in school. The first one is positive perception. There are teachers that have positive views on CFR. They agreed that CFR helps the lesson planning and setting the objectives, as well as making learning and teaching the forming skills, which are listening, speaking, reading, and writing easier. They also agreed that imported CFR textbook provides adequate activities and supplementary materials. They think that the CFR textbook that we are using now in primary school and secondary school, the activities is suitable and it is enough for our students. And then for negative perception, there are some of the teachers that think that CFR is exam oriented. They also think that teaching forming skills that I've mentioned earlier is a challenge because CFR expects our Malaysian students to perform such as native speakers. And then they also think that most contents in the CFR imported textbook are irrelevant to Malaysian students because they cannot relate to the culture and surroundings. Why? Because in the textbook, most of the content is worldwide. It is international, incorporating other cultures, other views. So they think it is irrelevant and not suitable to our students. And then we are going to discuss on the influence of teachers' perception towards CFR on their teaching practice in classroom. How does their perception affect their teaching in the classroom? For teachers who have positive perception on CFR, they tend to teach English in a meaningful context. Meaningful context here means that they teach English as the students can apply it in their daily life. They also emphasize more on the content, which is fluency. They think that it is more important for students to speak fluently, to deliver their message, their point. On the other hand, for negative perception teachers, they think that English should be taught in isolation and as an individual subject. Why? Because they think that CFR is exam-oriented. They also emphasize more on technicality and language rules, which is the accuracy. And then these are the challenges faced by teachers in adopting CFR in school. The first one, added load work to suit students' proficiency level. Some of the teachers, they think that CFR costs them a burden, like they need to do more work in order to make the worksheet suitable to the students, because as I mentioned earlier, the CFR content is worldwide. So they are afraid that Malaysian students cannot understand, cannot comprehend the content because our Malaysian students, most of our students are low and average level. And then they also think that the challenges are in facing difficulty in assessing students because it is they think it is difficult because we are using the descriptors like B1, B2, C2, C1. So they think it is difficult for us to assess our students, and they don't know what are the assessment tools to use. Okay, why? Why don't they know? Because most teachers have inadequate knowledge on how to implement CFR. They are still wondering what is CFR, how do we implement CFR, and then they also think it is a challenge to introduce international content, like I said earlier, to students from rural areas. Because students from rural areas, they don't have full access to ICT. So they cannot imagine. For example, they cannot imagine snow. How does snow look like? Because in Malaysia, and for example, in rural areas like Felda, we don't have snow. So it is a challenge for the teachers. And then these are the efforts that based on my reading, these are the efforts, and also some of it is my suggestion. How to reconstruct teachers' perception on CFR. We should implement more in-course training for teachers. Teachers can go for training, seek for modules, how to implement CFR in classroom, how to use active learning, incorporate CFR in active learning, and how to assess what are the assessment tools, and etc. And then we need to improve our ICT support and facilities. Schools can do this part, whereas we can ask for teacher and parent community to help us to improve our ICT at our school. And we have to urge the involvement of stakeholders. As we all know, we have different stakeholders, teachers, parents, and then the educationists. So we need to involve everyone. And then these are the review, which are the relevant theories that I incorporate in my conceptual paper. The first one is perspective transformation theory by Meziro, 1978. What is this theory? This theory is actually a theory whereas perspective is a basic belief, assumption, or interpretation of a person about how the world works. So this theory comes in handy when we discuss about positive and negative perception. Okay, one have their own theory, have their own perception. So they view CFR based on their assumption, interpretation. And then we incorporate plurilingualism, which is the ability of a person to speak more than one language, and the ability of the person to switch between the language. This comes in handy in relation to CFR. That's what we want to achieve. Our Malaysian students to speak as of a native speaker, so they can interchange between Malay and English. And then another theory is CFR, task-based learning approach, whereas we integrate CFR and task-based learning in order to create a meaningful learning for our students. And then these are the different schools of thought. Based on my reading, I found that Malaysian teachers have positive perceptions of the CFR-aligned textbook, regardless of the limitations of the textbook. This is from Muhammad Luqman Al-Hadi Farila Muhammad Shah. It is differ to the right side, if you can see that, so 2010, stated that most important textbooks are culturally or socially biased. So you can see that, the two different opinions. And then the below one, let's see. The introduction of CFR has given a better method of assessing learners in the English language from Nur Dato Muhammad Nawi et al. 2021, contradicting. So what Nur Azli Effendi Lee and Aini Akmal Muhammad Qasim 2019 said, they said that CFR aligned assessments such as portfolio and making scrapbook are less favored by teachers compared to one-off activities to assess students' current performance. So we can see here there are different schools of thought from different educationalists. And then these are the previous studies. We can see here, these are some of the reference or citations that I've taken from Rao, Masina Aulia, Muhammad Yusuf, 2021. They think that teachers were emotionally ready to accept change. What change? CFR. And Aina Hasina Muhammad Khair and Farila Muhammad Shah said that teachers agreed that teachers have inadequate skills of understanding the CFR, and it is one of the challenges in implementing CFR. And then Faisan and Chatako, as you can see there, they said that students felt confident doing activities such as discussion, role play, these are the activities that CFR incorporates. And then Nadra Zainal Abidin Hawati Hashim also said that English teachers are expected to teach all forming skills making the concept of plurilingualism less important. What is it? Okay, this is, like I said earlier, plurilingualism is a concept where a student can talk more than one language and can interchange between the two languages fluently. So Nadra and Hawati think that when teachers focus too much on CFR, they tend to forget or they tend to leave behind the concept of plurilingualism. So this is the areas that I discussed in my conceptual studies. All right, and in conclusion, teachers' perception can influence their teaching practice in classroom. So suitable measures need to be taken in order to minimize the negative views and misconception that exists among teachers. That's all from me. Thank you.